Hi everyone! So today I'm going to be talking about all of the books I've read so far in 2020. I might end up splitting this video into two parts in case it gets out of hand. If you enjoy the video, please don't forget to like and subscribe. It really supports my channel. I'm just going to jump straight into the very first non-fiction book I read this year, which was Dear Girls, Intimate Tales, Untold Secrets, and Advice for Living Your Best Life by Ali Wong. I know the title sounds really cheesy, but if you know Ali Wong's comedy, she is not cheesy at all. She's a Vietnamese Chinese American stand-up comedian. She's an actress and a writer. She was a writer on the TV show Fresh Off the Boat, which I really loved. And I've loved her since her Netflix specials, Baby Cobra and Hard Knock Wife. And this book is written as a letter to her two daughters, and she shares really personal stories in terms of her career, her relationships, how she met her now husband, and motherhood. I do have a bit of a warning though, because if you're under 18, I do not think that this is appropriate. Ali's humor is extremely explicit and she does not hold back. I really do admire her in this way because I think it's so refreshing to see someone being so truthful about things like motherhood, which she described in the book as solitary confinement. And she also talks about things like the double standards of parenting. I find her stories really hilarious, and I would be listening to the audiobook while I'm walking through the park, and I would find myself laughing out loud so much. So obviously I looked like a little bit of a crazy person, but I don't even care. I was having the best time listening to her audiobook. And I think that if you like her Netflix specials, you will absolutely love this book. There are also really personal and touching stories where you see a bit of a softer side of Ali Wong, and you really learn about how she overcame so many challenges to get where she is today. So the second nonfiction book I read was The Financial Diet by Chelsea Fagan. So if you watched my video on how I manage money, I recommended a YouTube channel called The Financial Diet, and that is Chelsea Fagan's YouTube channel. I found that the book was okay, but I would suggest watching her videos or looking to other resources if you're really looking for practical advice on how to manage your money and improve your financial literacy. I think that the book is definitely geared towards more of a lifestyle perspective, and I think it can be quite reassuring to people who feel like they're just a mess with money and really have no idea what to do with it. It contains little snippets of advice from different experts on their various money experiences. It talks about different topics like budget-friendly cooking tips and purchasing your first home. And I really appreciated that the book talked about how being good with money isn't about depriving yourself, but it's about knowing where your money is going and spending it with intention. I think it's something that you could finish in just one sitting, and I would only recommend it if you're a complete novice in this money managing area, because it will definitely not overwhelm you. The next book is a book that I read as part of my book club, and it is called Nice Girls Don't Get the Corner Office: Unconscious Mistakes Women Make That Sabotage Their Careers by Lois Frankel. It was first published in 2004, and I know there have been several editions and revisions, but I read the OG version as it was the only one available at my local library, so there you go. I do think that the book is quite outdated, and from a feminist perspective, I really disagreed with a lot of the main points and with the messaging that essentially you have to be less of a woman and more like a man to succeed and thrive in your career. I think that the premise can be really damaging because it encourages readers to use men's behavior in the workplace as the standard and as the goal you should achieve. And the book also really touched on very traditional masculine stereotypes. And as I was reading it, I just got the image of that man in the corner office in the flashy suit, like screaming into his headset, and that is the definition of power and success. I think it has value when you're thinking about how to succeed in a male-dominated profession in corporate America. But I think it is super problematic when we're focusing all our efforts on how to change women in the workplace to be more like men, instead of changing these toxic environments and structures that don't value their female workers as much as their male employees, or who really value and prioritize the masculine traits of their workers. I think that it's really problematic as it perpetuates an inequality issue, as it portrays feminine traits as something that's really negative and has no place in a workplace, which I just fundamentally disagree with. I'm very lucky that I've had bosses in very senior positions who don't fit that stereotype of having to be aggressive, cold, and dominant to be successful. So I think I've ranted for long enough about this book, but I will say that I still took away some things of value from the book. For example, it talks about speaking up for yourself, asking questions even though you might feel like an idiot, and thirdly, not apologizing when you have nothing to be sorry about. So those three main points were my key takeaways, and I will move on from this book. I'm super excited to talk about Atomic Habits by James Clear, which is my favorite self-help personal development book of all time. I found it to be a really helpful and practical guide about how to cultivate a healthier lifestyle and incorporate the kind of habits that you want in your life in a very incremental and achievable way. It's one of those books that I always go back to, and I find it really useful that it has summaries at the end of every chapter. So one of the tips I really love from this book is called habit stacking. So this works by looking at your current habits and seeing whether you can stack the new habit on top of an existing one. So I found this to be particularly helpful when I really wanted to incorporate meditation as part of my daily routine. It's one of those things that has always been on my New Year's resolutions, and I have not been able to follow through until now. The current habit that I stacked meditation on was my morning skincare routine. After I brushed my teeth and washed my face, I would go straight to the couch and do a 5 or 10-minute meditation before getting on with the rest of my day. It has been super effective because it didn't require me to change things up. It was a really seamless process with no resistance in terms of just dropping a new habit into my current lifestyle. Now I see meditation as just a part of my morning routine, which has been really satisfying. I think that it fits in with the messaging of the whole book, which really touches on making every action a vote towards the person that you want to become. I highly recommend this book if you're interested in the personal development space and want some practical key takeaways. The next book is my favorite book of the year and one of my all-time favorite reads, and it is Born a Crime by Trevor Noah. I listened to it on Audible, and I highly recommend listening to it as an audiobook because it's narrated by him and he is just an amazing storyteller. So this book is about his journey growing up in South Africa during apartheid, all the way to becoming the host on The Daily Show. So his father was a Swiss man and his mother is African, and during that time that union carried a penalty of 5 years in prison. So Trevor was essentially walking evidence of that crime. So he spent a lot of his childhood indoors and hidden away. I thought that the book was really insightful about what South Africa was like during that time, and it was something I really did not know much about before listening to this audiobook. This book was full of really personal, hilarious, and touching stories. Trevor was such a troublemaker during his childhood. He has a really close relationship with his mother, who was extremely religious but also rebellious and really brave. I think that the book has so much depth to it. It covers issues like gender roles, education, what it feels like to be an outsider, and family violence. The next book is Why Not Me by Mindy Kaling. I also listened to this one as an audiobook because she was narrating it. I've personally been obsessed with Mindy ever since The Office, one of my all-time favorite shows, when she was Kelly Kapoor and she was like, fashion show at lunch.
I don't know.
No, you haven't even tried it on yet. Try it on.
Not at work. I'll try it on.
Fashion show at lunch.
Obsessed with her TV show. I always rewatch the episodes because they make me so happy. And I really loved her writing and so many different things, like the new Netflix show Never Have I Ever. She talks about so many aspects of life, like her career, body image, and romantic relationships. And I really love the focus on confidence and friendships. I just find Mindy to be so charming and so endearing. I feel like her work ethic really came through in this book. She was so set on pursuing her careers and her goals, and she really didn't let anything stand in her way, and I found it to be really inspiring. Honestly, I just love everything that she writes and that she touches. Her humor is just so up my alley, and I find her to be really genuine and bright and just full of positive energy. The next book that I listened to was So You Want to Talk About Race by Ijoma Oluo, and I highly recommend this book because I think it is so informative. It will really broaden your perspective and your knowledge about issues like intersectionality, systemic racism, cultural appropriation, the minority myth, and more. She covers so much in this book in a way that is really digestible and easy to understand, and she shares really personal stories and lived experiences. I really think that everyone can get something out of this book. I highly recommend reading this book or listening to it as an audiobook, which is what I did. It was not narrated by the author, but I still really loved the narrator and felt it was really powerful and informative. So the next book that I listened to in Audible was The Happiest Man in the World by Eddie Jaku. Eddie is a Holocaust survivor, and this book is all about his journey of survival. The stories he shares are really personal, they're confronting and extremely intense. But the remarkable thing about this book is that you really gain insight into how he was able to stay positive and hopeful through the worst circumstances imaginable. I think that his resilience and his strength is so inspiring. I think this is one of those really important books to read because the messaging is so meaningful and powerful. I absolutely loved listening to his perspective on what he considers to be the most important things in life, and really what kept him going throughout his whole journey and through all the grief and heartbreak that he felt throughout his life. I ended up researching a bit more about him, and I loved discovering that he is now 100 years old and he's currently living with his family in Australia. I think it's really valuable to read a book like this because it really forces you to take a step back from your own life and look at the bigger picture of what is important to you and what your values truly are. I have a feeling that this is going to be a bit long, so I'm going to leave all of the fiction books I've read this year in a separate video, so please make sure you look out for that one. I really hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you next Sunday. Bye! something that I think you could finish in just one fitting. It's my thumbnail. How it felt.